Okay, wonderful. Let's get started. So thank you all for joining today's webinar on MongoDB presentations. And I will be happy to walk you a bit through what we've been releasing here as a first release for MongoDB monitoring. With me, I have my colleague from the development team on here, Mugove Kangai. Mugove, do you want to say hi?
Yeah, hello everybody.
Great, wonderful, thanks. He's really like the mastermind on the MongoDB side, so we'll just I'll involve him in a couple of points into the demo, also to keep it a bit active. And talk a bit back and forth. But let me start a bit to introduce a bit about and talk a bit about NiCE. Quite a number of you I see already on the call today know us already for a number of years, so I hope you're not going to be too bored, but this is going to be part of the general introduction. So yes, we a company that develops software for System Center Operations Manager and other application monitoring solutions like Microsoft Azure Monitor, Micro Focus Operations, and others. So this is we basically integrate in what customers have, and then we focus on monitoring workloads that are not monitored by, in this case, System Center Operations Manager. So the focus here is really on the VMware, Microsoft 365, Oracle, and other database products like MongoDB as well. And we come from an approach that we give you a solution that you can bring into your environment and ensure that the availability and the performance of the application you monitor is optimal and ideal. So, and the big advantage that comes from the solution is really the integration. So, because if you're running a System Center environment, this is your single point of monitor, so single point of monitoring console you use, where you have all the events and alerts consolidated. You have one console for the performance data. So you do not need to bring up a separate monitoring system here for, in this case, MongoDB. Over the years, we established a significant customer base on many countries. So you see a large portion of the pie is United States. So the second, obviously, is Germany, where we're located in Central Europe. We work a lot with United Kingdom, Canada, and Switzerland, and a number of others. So this is really across our whole portfolio of management packs. We go across all industries. So no matter if you're working in finance industry, if you're working on construction, or if you're working in government, the MongoDB is monitored in the same way in all different industries. So I have a quick overview here for what we actually cover. So in terms of management packs, so the blue boxes are the management packs. And we've just recently released the Azure monitors for Microsoft 365. So that's kind of a new suite of products which do not integrate with SCOM anymore, but with Microsoft, with Azure, actually with Azure Monitor. And we got a green box. So that is the green box we talked today about. So with that, let's get started. So, and let me talk a bit on the historic, how we came to develop this. So actually it started, I think, 2 years back when we had 3 customers or 3 requests really, which pooled together and talked to us about if we could help them to monitor the MongoDB new release. So we started doing this about 1.5 years, 2 years back. And that was really like where we had to decide what is the interface? How do we actually talk to MongoDB? So do we use, what type of driver do we use to connect and retrieve the data? Do we work with the logs? Do we actually pull the data directly from the database? Plus, we need to understand how it works. This is how is this instance, database, replica set, sharding, all the different technologies that are involved in the MongoDB space. We have a quite significant knowledge about Oracle and DB2 and other databases, but still every database is a bit different. And security was really key when we had find how we connect, but we had to think about the different ways how we secure the connections. And for this, I would just ask my colleague here as well to step in a bit and talk a bit about the possibilities we have to connect to MongoDB and what type of connection we support. We'll go with just a few words on supported connections.
Okay. Yeah. So as you know, MongoDB has moved to support TLS SSL connections. Just because yeah, the old SSL connections are now legacy, and they're moving towards using TLS as the default. So in the configuration file, we had to provide a way for the customer to add their TLS certificates, so that when the collector would start, it would retrieve that required keys to connect to the MongoDB server. So we did provide two fields with key, location, and if you had a possibility to secure it with a password, we would encrypt this password and then retrieve it, and then pass it to MongoDB to connect using this TLS certificate. And we support two forms, the PFX and the PIM files. Yeah. So with these two connections, we were not able to support the MongoDB for TLS certificate selector, because this is quite new. When we developed this about a year ago, it was not yet out, but we should be looking to support this in a newer version, right? We also do support connections to replica sets when you want to have your high availability, and yeah, so we'll probably see those in during a demo later on.
Yes, perfect. Thanks, Mugovic. Great. So that's correct. So let me actually move a bit on and talk about. I get to an architecture in a moment, but I'm just talking about a bit more the technologies we're using. So the first is the high performance metric collector, and as I said, this is the core of the solution. So when I talked in a moment ago about when we investigated what type of driver we use, we decided in the first place actually to use as a Perl driver. And we developed like about, or the first alpha version was on a Perl driver. And we worked on that until I think the beginning of this year, end of last year. So, but then actually there was the announcement that the Perl driver would be discontinued. So it actually was discontinued June this year, 2020. So that obviously like put us in a place like, no, we can't use the Perl driver anymore. So so what options do we have? And there are the drivers that we could use include like primarily like Go or very modern language. We've not wanted to start with them. So, but we decided actually to go for the .NET C# driver. So, which is kind of new also to us because .NET Core. So I have to say .NET Core is quite well. It's newer on Linux than other on Windows platforms. So, but we did and then a prototype for that first, which worked well, and then we went for design specification and did the complete implementation of the collector, which was really straightforward. And I was kind of amazed how fast it actually was. And then I was like, well, can it be that quick? Like maybe we just have good people on our team, but it was like really amazing how fast we could develop then this .NET the driver for that, or the collector for it. And yeah, we went through a lot of tests because like, well, this is new, we need to test that. So it went through all the different test cycles. And then obviously the management pack with all the rules, monitors, discoveries. So, well, that was a piece of cake, right? Well, we know this for years, so that was easy to do. And then, so that was all done. So, and well, if you want to understand like how to access this, just go to the website, and you can just open this as well here. So just pull it over here. So, and on the website, you'll actually can go to solutions, and in the solutions you go to then database, you go MongoDB, and here you can go actually to a support metrics, and that's where we actually can download the support metrics, and the support metrics then gives you the full overview of what is supported here. So all right. When we developed the architecture, we were really again driven for the same idea. What we always do is have a complete integration to SCOM. So it's a full native management pack. So you import the management pack into SCOM, and we reuse the agent-based technology in most cases. And I'll talk a bit about this later. So when I come to the architecture, but it's there's what our approach is. No additional ports to be opened, no additional agents to be installed. It's basically fully sits on these SCOM architectures. We took a same approach as we do for the Oracle MP or the DB2 management pack, so it's very similar. We do have support for most of the enterprise features, although they are not specific metrics, so it works. But there's more on the roadmap, and I'll talk about the roadmap that's going to come when you look into the Mongos and charts and what we can do there. Yes, we support all the new versions, 4.0 and 4.4 as well. And there's one important item which I get typically asked on the calls, like when I talk to prospects, oh, you have a .NET collector around there. How much performance is actually using? Do I need to put additional CPUs or memory in there, or even disk, just to have your collector? The answer is no, because we are really focused on having a very streamlined and thin processor and a collector that collects the data. So when we had the Perl collector, we actually were challenged with that because it had quite an overhead. But with .NET, we haven't seen problems here. So we've really low performance impact. So typically the test we are doing, loading the MongoDB with an application that runs on it and does put load on the database. Then we monitor it from an agent-based perspective, just the performance, and then we actually add the collector that collects MongoDB specific information. And with that, we actually get an idea how much actually the collector is using in terms of performance. And typically, if there's a doubt from any of the application persons involved, we can just say, well, you can do the same exercise. Just monitor the system without the MongoDB management pack and the collector, and then add it and see if there's any difference. But there's barely noticing any difference for that. Well, from a security, we always do the least permissions principle here. So we try to work with absolute minimum permissions. So no additional permissions that should be granted that are not needed here. Okay. Oh. Actually, let's get to an architecture now. So because I showed you topology in a moment. So and the architecture is very similar to what we've doing with other management packs. So it's really proven. So first we have the management group, the SCOM management group with a number of management servers in there. And we import basically the management pack. The management pack in the end sits in the database on the left side with its instrumentation and all the files that we require for monitoring. So everything is basically in this bundle. It's an MPB, it's a bundle where all of this is contained. In this next step, there's actually deployment of the instrumentation. These are the instrumentation we call basically the files, the collector, and everything what is in there. So this is like a set of deployable configuration over there. And this is moved over here. And in the next step, basically, then this is configured on the system to work with the database. So this was kind of the configuration file my colleague Mogova referred earlier to. There's a configuration file which allows you to define username, passwords, and connection strings and other things you might need. This is also fully encrypted, so there's no clear text password stored or anything like that. There's full logging and tracing. There's additional configuration files, and I think we have a bit time later to actually look on the system how this is set up, so I can walk you a bit through. So great. So and then on the left side, we actually then have the management pack, which brings all the the additional artifacts with it that we need for monitoring. Great. So I'll just let me check if there are any questions. No questions at this point. So let me actually turn over to the live demo for now. So just a second. Okay, I assume most on the call are familiar with SCOM, with System Center Operations Manager here. So I'm not going to explain all the details of it. So there are separate videos and tutorials for that. So in the end, when you import the MongoDB management pack, you get an additional folder view here on the left side. So the folder view is actually containing all the views that we basically deliver with the management pack. So, and there's one additional view that is added, which is called NiCE IT Management Solution, Unix, Linux, which actually allows you and helps you to install the MongoDB instrumentation to this. And typically the process is done in a way that you actually start here, and then we have a task which allows us to deploy the instrumentation. This would be this task here. So it actually allows us to deploy it. You just need sufficient privileges to do that. It's typically the privileged account. If you do not want to do that, you can also manually move this over to the system and do a manual installation process. So that is also an option. Once that is done, you will actually see this becomes a MongoDB computer, and there are a lot of other tasks, for example, to do troubleshooting, to test collections, to uninstall, and other details I can go over in a moment. And then once the discovery starts, it will actually start to discover the Mongo instances. So there are like 3 instances on the system. So this is our Linux system, L102, and there are 3 instances. All of them are healthy and running. So, and at this point, I would probably ask my colleague Mogove if you could just like stop one of the instances that we can see, like if one of the instances drops down or if the instance is part of a cluster, then yeah.
I can drop the data case 1 if that's okay.
Yeah, just shut this down. No harm's done here because we're just like in a test environment here, demo environment. So
okay, so I've shut it down.
Okay. Well, I'll keep going a bit. Like as you know, the polling interval is like it's like around 60 seconds for that. So we've got like a minute here until the alert should show up. Sometimes it goes faster, sometimes it takes a bit more time. So, but while we're waiting for that, Phil can actually just go over and talk a bit what views we provide. So here, besides the instance, you have an instance state view, and here in the instance state view already we see the critical alert that came in, or the critical state. The alert actually would be in the active alert state here. And we basically would need to refresh. So it says MongoDB instance unavailable here, where the alert comes in, and in the view for the instances, we basically see the critical state right over here. So we'll leave it on for critical for a moment until we start it up. So here on the bottom, actually, you see also the details that we discover. So we have like a port, for example. We have a file, like a full location for the configuration file. We have a log file folder, and we actually also see the version of the instance. We could also make this part on the top view. Like this is a very handy feature. So let's say you'd like to see all the versions up here to compare them. We see all there 4.6, or if you'd like to understand in one view, like what is actually our configuration file, and let's also add the port number. So we actually see that all here and can easily compare that. So obviously there are different ports here. They're all running on the same system and different configuration files. Great. So besides monitoring, we also the availability monitoring. We also do provide performance data. So in the yeah, Mugoba, why don't you just start the instance up again, please? So like you just see.
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, the details could be also here in the Health Explorer. So in the Health Explorer, we see all the different monitors that are in here. So we have the instance available. So and this is the monitor, and this one here as well. So and we have the same for the database. So if you go into database state view, so we have a different number of databases. So we'll just open the database, go to the Health Explorer, and look, for example, we have, let's say, for data like database file size, so the size of the database. So we have information on that in case you like to set a threshold on this. This would be just done by the monitor properties on, you can apply an override as well. So, or either critical or warning. All our monitors are so-called free state monitors. So where we have a warning state and a critical state. So if you would set a critical state, then we would also receive a critical alert here. So that's up to you for configuration. Right. Let's see if it's back up. So did you start the database up again, Mokove?
Yes, I did.
The instance? Yep, okay. Well, and it just went green here. So we'll actually came back, and also the alert should be gone. So, or disappearing in a moment. Yeah, there it's gone. So this is the alert basically that came up for the problem. The instance was shut down. Now it's back up. We have a large set of performance counters in here that you can see the different performance views. So there could be around availability here, for example. I do not see an impact. That was it needs to be at least a few minutes down to actually show an impact here. You see the virtual memory amount that is assigned to the different instance. We see it goes a bit down for actually the one we started here or we restarted. So actually dropped a bit down. So after the restart, it was using a bit less virtual memory. Then we can also look, we have a lot on the storage engine and the cache here. We have connection count, connections available, or total connections used. So this information is basically also in here, and you can use it for performance graphing. In the network area, we can understand how many bytes in and out each of the instances is using. And we also do have here for the counters that we receive, and in the end, the replication, we don't have a replica set up, so maybe there is probably not much data going in. Yes, they're all 0. I would expect this because replication is currently not set up. This is not a clustered, or there's no clustered instance here. So as you see, there's a rather larger set of different performance data just on the instance. If we do the same on the database, we also see a number of performance counters here. So like the data size, for example, there is small, or the storage size. So we see the storage size here. That's the one which was one of the databases dropped a bit and then went up again. So, but this gives like typically indication of how much data is there used. Okay, great. So with that, let me also explain a bit like what are the features you're using. So if you look at any of the monitors, if the instance, for example, let's pick here the number of current connections, we do provide the product knowledge which comes with the product. So we try to give some additional information, and this might not work because this console is behind a firewall, but typically this opens like here the connection to the MongoDB manual. And in this manual, then you can look up specific information around this monitor. The same applies for performance views. So we have a link basically from the product knowledge into the performance view. So yeah, I'll just have a, it doesn't open for permission reasons here, but this basically opens and then at the separate window for the connection view here. So, and if you want to understand how often the instance was down, we can actually go over here. So to the advanced state view, we see it's been always up. The one we actually shut down, we should have actually see a state change in here. So if you go over here to state changes, take the scope out, we actually see that twice it actually went down. So, and then it actually came back up, it went down. So that was the demo, or the test we just did a few minutes ago. So we can basically go back and track this. If you have installed the reporting component for SCOM, then you actually also have the available possibility to create reports on this. Reporting you can do on the availability. You can report on changes. For example, you could generate a report like to understand when different versions were upgraded or patched. So or the port number was changed, file configuration changed. All the properties we discover of each instance and database go into the reporting and can be reported. All right. So let's take a bit step further and look at the actually system here. So let me open one of the MongoDB servers to get a bit of an overview what we do actually here. So so the agent on the system actually, let me just check, is the standard OMI agent here, so which runs typically on the operations user. So and we do not require any special permissions beside the standard what comes with the agent. And when you deploy the instrumentation, it copies it to a specific directory. If you type it correctly, we'll also end up there where I want. So, and here we have that what we call instrumentation. So different files. There is some set of Perl. So Perl is just a layer in between. So it's between the provider and the collector. And let me open a slide just to make a bit clear what I'm talking about. So we have here the SCOM provider, and this is actually a NiCE provider, SCOM provider we have here, and the collector. So this connection is basically in here. We have a Perl layer in between just to connect those two. The actual application is written in .NET. And if we look in here, they have the one large file, this one, which is the collector application, which is the core, so to say, of it. And this one is doing its is basically doing the connection and collecting of the data. And well, this is the static data which is there. You can change that, so it's copied there, it's secured, so no corruption with the scripts and everything. And then there's a set of configuration. This should be on conf Mongo. Here we go. And this is the configuration where we have, for example, the configuration file here with the different instances we have configured. And we do have a license file here as well, and a couple of other files, like, for example, this file allows you to do tracing, switch on trace, do a trace status, and do other kind of information that can be set in this file for troubleshooting. And if you do trace, then there is a directory in a log directory, and this log directory then has information about the logging and tracing. So I see actually it looks like that the logging and tracing is switched on. So obviously that is, see, this is a test and development system that shouldn't be switched on. So let me actually go and switch it off. So there are two options to switch it off. Either can do this via the configuration file, or we can actually jump over to the SCOM console and go to the MongoDB computers, and actually go in here and say tracing disable and run this. So it should actually go in here and disable the tracing. So what it does, actually, it starts also a script on the system, and the script will basically then update the configuration file. So it's running for a moment. So tracing disable. So yes, it's switch trace by status is set to off. If you like to understand all the variables that are set for configuration, you can run this here without any parameters. So this task will give you the current settings. So, and we also see that the tracing is now set to off here in this, on the system. Right. So okay. There are a few more other folders that are not really worth explaining. There's a temporary directory. There's some directory to doing some so caching some data. So, but it's all like kind of confined, and it never should exceed like 5 megabyte around of data in here. So also the log files are run. So only obviously if you leave on tracing for extended period of time, then you might receive more data on the system. But other than that, it is all limited or rolled. So the log files, actually the main log files are actually rolled after a certain size. All right. So good. So with that, let me return to the screen where I started in the beginning. So the idea is here to provide like a solid management pack or like a version 1.0. So it is a released version 1.0, and I'm happy to see more prospects coming to us and customers that are looking to onboard this management pack into their SCOM environment. So, and yeah, that is basically the overview, expecting that it will grow into features and functionalities. And actually that is it's worth one more slide to talk a bit about the roadmap and what's coming. Right, we covered the demo, and let's look a bit at the roadmap. So just note this is subject to change without notice. So don't call me up and say you didn't deliver like support for containers like in a few weeks or next year or sometime, or the UDF facility isn't there. So it is subject to change. We are trying much as we can to build new versions, but we have basically 10 different products we have to maintain. So we have to juggle a bit around and have to see you that the developers are all happy working on the different products here. So one of the highest demands right now we are working is the support for containers and remote monitoring. So these go basically together. Of course, we have received a couple of requests for that. To see also some of the prospects that's requesting that are on here. So this is currently having the highest priority and might become already earlier than Q1. So this is where we actually, if you run MongoDB on a container and a Kubernetes cluster and OpenShift or so on, that we have the ability also to monitor those, even if there's no SCOM agent installed of that. So that is currently what we are working on. Mongos are the routers basically, so we do monitor them in principle, but not with specific metrics. So this is something we're looking at. We're planning to add new metrics together with basically the UDF facility. UDF stands for user-defined functionality. So so this is basically where you define actually your own queries or your own data, because there's much more data we get out of from MongoDB, from the monitoring side, but we don't have at this point like monitors or rules for this in place you might want to use. So in case you want to use those monitors or rules, then we will provide like ability to configure those, either via SCOM, like for example a template, or via wizard to kind of easily add them, or like a configuration file on the MongoDB system. So yeah, if you have other requests, feel free to also either write them in the chat, to write me an email, to write any of our contacts like support at NiCE or solutions at NiCE. So feel free to bring those in. So that just to give you an overview what we're working on. And yeah, also if there's a new SCOM version coming out, like as it looks next year, like a major release of the new next version of SCOM, we obviously will supporting that. So SCOM 2019 update rollup 2 is the latest like that is available, which is fully supported. So, but yeah, it will typically have not a problem with supporting those versions. The same applies for MongoDB. So they have also a quite frequent release cadence where we receive new versions, we certify, but as we have the very modern collector now in place, we expect that the architecture we have formed and the base we build will be there for many years. And the reports on the right side is like something we also plan to have SCOM reports. They are basic reports already available today. So if you want to do an SLA report on your Mongo databases or your Mongo instances, you can do that. Or these are basically running on the objects, and they are not always, they will be impacted, for example, if there's another problem as well on the system. So we eventually do in the future also do some SLA tracking objects, as they're called, to be added, so we can also report on them. And yeah, there can be done additional cluster support we're looking at also with the new metrics. So, all right, so I think that is a bit about the overview. I can give in terms of the roadmap. And I think with that, we are coming quite to the end of the presentation here today already. So it's a new release. It's not so many features as we have in other products eventually, where I can talk for hours. I could go more into details, but I really wanted to give you an overview here at this point to see what we can do in terms of monitoring your MongoDB systems. But if you have any questions, feel free to place them in the chat or talk about. Yeah, there's one question that comes in. Yes, the product structure. Indeed, I did not talk about the product structure and pricing of the solution. So typically we do, as this is a public webinar, we do not talk about the pricing, because pricing depends a bit on the environment you have. So the product structure has two types of structures. So we have a standard per instance license. So you require a license for each Mongo database instance. So MongoDB license for each instance. Typically, there's one instance on per server, but there could be also more. And we have another model for larger environments where we provide something like an enterprise license agreement, where we have cover basically all of those, or like per management group licensing. So that is the other option. And but there's the staggering pricing model, as we call it, which depends on the number of instances you have. So the best is typically to get in contact with our sales, so they will contact you directly in case you have that question. Okay, there is a question. Are there support for replica features of MongoDB? Can we see latency and performance of secondary replica? Very good question. And yes, we're working with that, or we currently working with this. So today it is not in support. So it is this is not part of the first release. So that's basically, let me go back to the roadmap. So we talked about the metrics that will come for the replica set. So when we talk about new metrics here on the left side, so that would be something that we have in there. So we'll take it back and then raise the awareness of that item, but yeah, that will come. So the technical side, how does the licenses work, is the questions. Like, how do we enforce licenses? Yes, well, I can, yeah, sure, I can talk about that. That's not a problem. So so as I said, the license is per instance. So, and you will, when we go to our website, so let me open this for a second again. So there are two, well, if you're doing an evaluation and have an evaluation version of it, then you will actually see, so just go here. Just need to move the window over here, just a moment. It's just got tiny. Yeah. So in the NiCE customer portal and the login here, you will be able to, let's see if I have a login I could use. No. Well, you would probably, well, even I don't really have a login for this now, but you as a customer would have a login, and then you can download a license file. And this license file is two types. There's a management pack you can import. And then there will be deployed a license file, and the license file, it goes to the system. So it will go to, sorry. So to this directory. Yeah, and we have here the license file. So this is the license file. So, and this license file basically contains an encrypted string. So in this encrypted string in here is something you received either via management pack or you received from the portal. And you can just copy and paste this license to the file. But ideally, if you use it, if you imported a management pack, that will actually be deployed to this directory here, the license file, and you will actually see it's deployed by the ops user. And it should be obviously readable by all, at least. So sometimes we have seen in the past that there are permission problems on this file. If you have a UMass setting on the system, for example, that excludes the write being read by other users, and then if another user wants to access that file, then there's a problem. So this is eventually a bit system specific. But if this file is here, then you can actually also check the license on the system. Let me just go to the directory. So that's again 2 ways. So if you're more the person liking to work on the shell, you can do it from here. MongoDB start, and there's should be a way to check the license. So where is it? Yeah, I know it's different here. It's different. It's not. Yeah, the command. There's a different command. So let me just actually do it via the. Let's do it via the SCOM console. So we can go over here to the MongoDB installation folder. We can do show license. Run the show license command. So this again triggers one on the system, but there will be a check command as well in a moment. Yeah, here we go. So this is the output of the license. So you can check that. And one other thing you can do is the test data collection. Check MongoDB and peak instrumentation. This task also will actually check the license. So because it will do a test collection here, this one. So that also does do a check, but either one of those. So this is the so-called license provider. And if there's a problem, then you would see a word here. Yeah, there's also a command for this one on the command line, but I'm not going to dig it out right now. So it's an OMI CLI command to enumerate the instance or to call a method on one of the instances of the provider we have. So. All right, I hope this answers the question. So just sorry for all, it was a bit technical excursion on that. So, but again, if you have other questions on it, please use support at NiCE. We have a support organization who are very capable. There's a part in the United States, part in Europe that helps. So if there are questions, feel free to reach out to them. All right, thank you. I think with that, we'll cover the questions so far. If there's anything more, feel free to come back later. So, and I would stop the recording and sharing. And thank you again for joining today, the live session, and wish you good rest of the day. Thank you, and goodbye.